Hello, my name is Sanders Šhruverс for the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. It is with great pleasure I now welcome you for a digital workshop on Eurasian business skills for Narxoz University. Shortly I will start a PowerPoint with a voiceover, and at the end of the video we'll have a possibility for a question and answer, a Q&A session, which we will conduct live at Zoom. For now, I hope you enjoy the movie. Thank you. Yes, and now I'm taking over with the voiceover. I'm sorry, the sound quality is not the same. First, my name, it's pronounced as Sanders Šhruvers in the Dutch language. I work as a lecturer for the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. But besides, in part-time, I'm also Dean of the Belgrade Business School for Heilongjiang International University in the beautiful city of Harbin in China. And I'm honored to speak at, to be a visiting lecturer or professor at three wonderful universities: Plekhanov in Moscow, Beria in Islamabad, Pakistan, and IPSU in Tbilisi in Georgia. I often speak at international conferences, and I wrote almost 89 management books. Some of them are really boring, but others are really quite nice. If we look at the program, it's on three levels. I would like to explain you a few things. On a macro level, I look at the geo-economical perspective that Kazakhstan today has. I also combine that with global cross-cultural insights that the last 35 years have given us. On a meso level, I look at selected foreign as well as Kazakh examples of communication and at times funny miscommunication. And on a micro level, I'm looking at what it means for higher education as such, and most importantly, for you. The world as it is internationalizing at an unprecedented pace. If we look at the Kazakhstan 2050 strategy, you see that the country is aiming to be one of the 30 most modern and active countries. It is ambitious, and it will bring you into contact with people from all over the globe, and you as well will become quite international. Feels like the old Silk Road seems to revive, and Kazakhstan often is described as being a landlocked country. I wouldn't say that. I think it's a land-linked country, and all the initiatives that we will see later on also in this lecture offer Kazakhstan now an opportunity to capitalize on your transit potential, most of all between East and West. There are huge investments taking place in hard connectivity, infrastructure, all kind of treaties, what I call hard connectivity. If we look at the Nurli-Zol infrastructure program, it's immense, and it will really create a lot of opportunities for young Kazakh. If we look at the Chinese Belt and Road projects, or as it was called before, One Belt, One Road, OBOR, there are immense opportunities for future Narxoz alumni. Part of the lecture now I have divided in three areas. The infrastructure, which we more or less now talked about. I want to talk more about trade, and in the last part it will come down to the skill set necessary in order to have these possibilities that all the Silk Road opportunities offer to benefit of them. Now, yes, it's internationalizing, but it's also interesting to look at it from a different perspective. And I think, especially for Kazakhstan, you should try to look at it in this way. Turn the map upside down, because I feel that the reality of now and the reality of your country calls for another view of the world than, let's say, post World War II. So basically, don't listen to your papa and mama, don't listen to me, but listen to the opportunities that are ahead of you. And they are Belt Road and new countries. So, of course, you can study Spanish and German and French, and you want to go to the UK. It's great, but it's also a bit looking back. And if you look ahead, there are actually other areas that are much more promising from a career perspective, I predict. One of the elements that really influence your future, without doubt, are the Eurasian Economic Union. 5 member states at present. It might be more in the future. In fact, the original proposal came from Kazakhstan already in 1994. The treaty was signed 10 years later, and it is by Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Russia. But a year later, already Armenia and Kyrgyzstan joined. At the moment, we are talking about an integrated single market potential of more than 180 million people. This is enormous. Free movement of goods, capital, services, and people. You can imagine what that offers as an opportunity. And you can also understand when I say, well, it's nice to concentrate on Germany or in the UK, but maybe here is also potential. The Kremlin wishes to balance European Union, the United States of America. And if we look at the EU, 6 of the 8 major Asian highways are going through territory which is EU. There are plans for future high-speed railway lines, and if we see how these high-speed railways are working in Japan, Korea, but most of all in China, it's very promising. What surprised me is that things like the ruble by 2025 should be replaced by the altin. Just like in Europe we have the euro, the altin should be the future EU coin. Maybe it's postponed slightly, but still. And the experts predict that in a few years from now, there will be a quarter of growth of the GDP, which is substantial. There are also some other sides to EU. People say maybe it's been created too hastily. There's strong integration rhetoric, but it has been said that the EU mainly exists on paper. In practice, we see that for very important economical decisions, it seems that the states that are a member are not consulting each other. So joint actions miss a kind of synergy, perhaps. And also we see that there is a lack of common institutions that can help do the basic research as well as decent decision-taking processes. Then I would like to draw your attention to another strong influence for the Kazakh geo-economical situation, and that's of course China. China is very active with its Belt Road Initiative. It's pumping a lot of money into it. And in fact, again, just like the EU in 1994 had its roots in Kazakhstan, also the Belt Road Initiative, or at the time it was called OBOR, has been launched in Astana by Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Belt Road Initiative largely replicates the Silk Road as we know it from history, and it's something that is a common heritage for both China and Kazakhstan. If you look at it on the map, from a Chinese perspective, Kazakhstan is the first country. If you draw a straight line from China to Europe, it needs to go through Kazakhstan. And in fact, from the 10,000 kilometers it stretches, almost 3,000, a third of that, runs through the territory of Kazakhstan. So the economical potential of Belt Road Initiative is huge, as well as its geopolitical effects, because of course China will gain more influence in a political and economical way. Here we see it on the map. And if it is a belt, then definitely Kazakhstan is the buckle in the belt. And that's for all kind of railroads, highways, energy, pipelines, digital. So it's very influential, and it really offers an incredible transit perspective for Kazakhstan to capitalize. So if that's the case, how is your Chinese? How good are you in connecting with Chinese and dealing with their expectations? The third influence that I would like to share with you might surprise you, but I would like to talk about Pakistan. Because CPEC, as it's called, and that is actually the flagship project from China for its Belt Road Initiative. It started off in Pakistan. The majority of the first investments have been made there, kind of test market, if you like. CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is very, very important in Pakistan, and also China takes it serious. I visited it. I visited also the planning committee in Islamabad. And I would like to draw your attention to Pak-Kazakh cooperation because it offers an important and often not directly seen potential for the country. And most of all, that is the deep sea port Gwadar in Pakistan. And it is new, it is capable for serious ships, and it opens up at the moment already Turkmenistan to the Gulf area, to the Indian Ocean. It's a lot faster than through the Straits of Malacca via Singapore. It's also safer. Kazakhstan could join this mega project of Gwadar, and it would provide the country with an alternative route for access to sea. And in fact, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, a few years ago, he offered Kazakhstan a CPEC connection, and it got a positive response in Astana. For your information, it's already quite some years that Kazakh's armed forces are being trained in Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and there are many contacts between the foreign ministries of both Pakistan and Kazakhstan, and in fact they have a roadmap for bilateral economic cooperation in place. The question is, are you ready for Pakistan? What do you know about Pakistan? As well as Pakistani. Is it difficult? Not for me, because for quite some years I have the pleasure of organizing a summer school. Well, I don't organize it, that is Barrier University. But every August I'm there. I really like it. I very much like the students. As you can see, Pakistani, the dress they wear, some of that is Western or modern, but some of it is absolutely traditional. I really like the students, very motivated. It's a very good university. And last year we opened it up to Chinese students, but we would love to open it up also for Kazakh. So that is an open invitation. We leave Pakistan and we come to home sweet home for me, the European Union. And I think many people in Europe have no idea how big Kazakhstan is. And therefore it comes as no surprise that you have so many different ethnic groups, over 130. Well, so do we in Europe. And if I look at the size of your country, it's enormous. If you come from the Netherlands, there is something, if we look at the statistics of world trade in goods and services, we can actually see that European Union is also huge. In fact, we're bigger than China, we're bigger than the US. And that's often overlooked, and we're multiply much bigger than South Korea. So it makes because also the European Union is the biggest trade partner of Kazakhstan. And more than 50% of your FDI, your foreign direct investments, comes from EU countries. And I was surprised to see that actually my own country is the top runner with 19 billion. America has half of that. Switzerland, 26 billion, which is still double of what both the UK and the People's Republic of China are investing. So everybody talks about China, but actually Switzerland is doubling it. And what's also relevant, that only last March 2020, the EU-Kazakhstan Enhanced Partnership and Cooperation Agreement. So it is a treaty. It's a treaty on trade and services. And it's the first step to a free trade agreement. So this is very essential. We know that trade is going to multiply after we see that in Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, where such partnerships have really opened up for trade. So we will have much, much more contact. And again, I ask you the question, are you ready? Because the fact that we'll have more communication not necessarily means it's also better communication. In fact, it is the contrary. We know that because in Europe, we are used to working with each other, and we have all different cultures, languages, behavior. Somebody from Finland is completely different from somebody from Greece or South Italy, and it's not so easy. And that is also reflected in this research that has been done. It's validated. It's commissioned by the European Commission itself. It's called the Elucidator Report, and it shows that 40% of pan-European funded projects they fail simply because of intercultural miscommunication. Now, we can and we must do better in Europe, but if this is funded projects where Brussels gives money and 40% fails, how much do you think that Kazakh European projects are going to fail when there's no money involved? So it is a big challenge, and I think it will be a lot more than 40. So we have to see that there is no European continent. The continent is Eurasia, and you might consider that the westernmost part of Kazakhstan is actually in Europe, if you like. So as a result, I would like to say, try to learn to have adapted strategies and create a communication method that will make you not have such a 40% failure rate, but perform much better. And then we look at what I call soft connectivity. And what we see at the moment is that a lot of the efforts and all the investments are put in the hard connectivity, either being trade or networks, business networks, treaties, and infrastructure. What is missing is the soft skills. And the soft skills, as we know from Europe, are very important. And the soft skills can actually provide you with a very hard result, namely 40% return on investment that we actually lose in the European Union. So my advice, hard connectivity, a good start, but where's the soft connectivity? And why would you wait until it's too late? So I therefore want to share with you something from the cross-cultural discipline. Since about 35 years, we have the possibility to ask massively people with internet, and we have surveys. You get a lot of them yourself. This allows us to have validated research in which we can find a kind of average score for countries. And surprise, surprise, most countries are not the same. Here we see there is a PDF of this, and the international office has that available, so you can either get that as a download or they can email it to you. This is what I call the cultural score axis. And on each spectrum, and on the download, by the way, there's a complete explanation of how to read this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But what's interesting is that we can see that countries score quite differently. Now, we'd like to emphasize there is no good or wrong. There's no right or wrong in these scores. The right or wrong is only when you are in a country. And then it's best to follow the expected communication pattern. But if you are having clients abroad or you're going to study abroad, then it's actually almost mandatory to prepare yourself and to ask yourself, what is it that I am? What is it that people in my new host country prefer, and how can I bridge that divide? I'll give you a few examples. And I would like to start with, it's maybe an open door, but I would like to start with time management, with a quote of movie star Marilyn Monroe, who said, "I've been on a calendar, but I've never been on time." And that makes it punctuality. Now, I took the spectrum that we have for punctuality versus overdue, and we see average scores, and we see that on the most left side, are the inventors of the clock the Swiss, and they really care about the clock, makes sense. Germans, Japanese, people from Sweden, the Dutch, the Americans, they all very like to be punctual, whereas Nigeria is far on the less punctual side. Again, I would like to emphasize that it's not wrong or right, it's just because the peoples and the cultures on the right side of the punctuality are not task-based culture, but relationship cultures. And then, of course, the relationship overrules the agenda and the clock. So that is important to understand. So there is another element that I would like to share with you. Well, we have jokes like this. There are many jokes about Kazakh punctuality, and it is even acceptable to turn up late to a wedding. Yeah, but we actually also see on this map it's not that bad. But what is the interesting part as well is when I need quickly a solution, I will actually not ask a German or a Swiss because they like to plan things ahead. I much rather have somebody who has flexibility, so somebody who is on the other side of the spectrum. So there's always two sides on the spectrum. However, conversations like this are quite funny from my perspective. But yeah, it is a reality for some people, for others maybe not. Now, what we see is that yeah, there are ways, and there's linear time and there's flexible time. But you also have people that are on the flexible side that can do many things at the same time. And in that case, if the situation calls for that, I much rather have somebody from India or from China because they're multitaskers. And the Germans and the Swiss on the left side, they're not. They're very sequential. They go step by step. So that's different. How do we get there? Well, we know by asking 1,000 people. And if you say what's on time, some people say, well, 15 minutes okay. And other people say, no, time is time. And this way we have a median bell curve. And if you ask more than 1,000 people in Germany and more than 1,000 people in Kazakhstan, we actually see that the median cut of the curve is different. And that's all fine if you're in Germany or if you're in Kazakhstan. But when you start to work together with each other, somehow you need to bridge the divide. And that is what I mean with a gap analysis. That you should think, okay, this is me, that is them. How can I solve that? And if you have that knowledge, you're further. Language is also funny because it tells us a lot. In America, time is money. In Nigeria, it says the clock did not invent man. And in Kazakhstan, there's also sayings. Enough of it. I talked about time, and if I would have more time, I could explain you all kind of other examples, but within a half-hour guest lecture, that's what you can do. There's something else I want to talk about because it really struck me, and again, it's something that shows that culture is at times intangible. It's how we touch each other. I was in a bookshop in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and I was trying to buy books, and most of the books were actually in Portuguese, which I can read, but it's not, I'd rather have it in English or Spanish or something that I feel more confident in. So I was asking the gentleman in the bookshop, said, listen, I need some books on Brazilian culture, but do you have it in English? And yeah, the gentleman starts to talk to me, and after 2 or 3 questions, where are you from? Do you like Brazil? He touches me on my arm, and the hand stays on my arm. And I'm not used to that, and I get a little bit annoyed, but I don't want to show it. He doesn't have any English books, so he brings me to the English department, introduces me to the colleague there, and the colleague again starts to, where are you from? Do you like Brazil? And again, the gentleman puts his hand on my arm, close to my shoulder, and I feel a little bit, uncomfortable with it because I'm not used to that. Now, I just paid for my books and I ran home, and in the hotel, I wanted to look up why did I feel so uncomfortable, and I could find it. It's called haptonomics. And the touch-sensitive preference of the average Dutchman. The darker it gets, then you're allowed. So girlfriend or wife can touch you. But as you can see, a man in my case, or a friend of the same sex, can only touch me at the lower arms. My mom can touch me on the areas where the bookshop people touch me, and that's why I guess I felt uneasy. A long time ago, I was married to a Japanese girl, and um, then I met her after a long time at the airport, at Narita Airport in Tokyo, and I wanted to hug her and embrace her, and she said, "Ah, just hold my hand," and I was like, "Oh my God, what kind of romance is this?" But then I saw this picture, and I said, "Oh God, Monica was right. I was wrong because you can see I'm only allowed in public to hold the hand." Now, and in Brazil, it looks like this. Good. Another thing, and here and there I have a Kazakh translation. Anybody took the bus to university or somewhere else? And I want to ask you to think back, think at the bus stop, and how do people behave at the bus stop in Almaty? Now, to help you with the picture, and this is behavior at the bus stop. So relatively close to each other, and yeah, that's it. Anybody ever took a bus in Sweden? Well, it looks like this. And it really is, because here we see the bus stop, and here we see the Swedes. And then we go to Finland, also Nordic, not Scandinavian, actually. And again, we see the bus stop in the middle, and people are really like that. And they also don't like it if you're too close. Then they will move and think you're crazy. Good. I don't have the time, but I would like to talk a little bit about language, because a lot of universities fully rely on language studies when they send the students abroad. And exchange is basically study English and then you go, but there's no pre-departure preparation, which I think is a capital mistake. Because language, my friends, is only 8% of your total communication. So let me give you an example. I was in Korea, and I was doing some trainings. There was me, and there was also a lady from Australia. And she got a bit irritated that people often asked her, "How old are you and are you married?" And she was saying, "It's none of your business, mate." And actually, it is their business, because in Korea, people really care about where they are in the hierarchy. So they want to know the kind of language they should use. And one important factor is age, because if somebody is older than you need to have all kind of honorary titles where you show respect. If people are married, you also need to talk differently. So they ask it because they want to know how to use the language. So if you just speak English, it doesn't help, because they still ask that. And it's only the Koreans that have been abroad that stop this labeling exercise. That actually doesn't work in English even, and still they do it. There's more with Koreans in English, because I saw this panel on of Lotte, and it's called the Summer Bitch Festival. And I was really surprised that, well, where are the summer bitches? And people said, "Oh, summer bitch," but we're on the beach, and they wanted to write Summer Beach, near the sea. So that was funny. So language is important, because it helps you, but it's not enough. You really need to understand about cultural deeper values and also country-specific behavior. And that is also what I think future Kazakh professionals will have to deal with. It will be a multi-factor reality, because the country has been very clever in drafting its future strategies. You have the Eurasian Economic Union, you have the Belt Road Initiative, you have the European Union, you have CPEC. So this East-West link, the transport hub between Europe and Asia, is very powerful. And as a result, the country was able to attract more than $160 billion in foreign direct investment since the independence from the former Soviet Union. At the same time, we have the Kazakhstan 2050 goals. They're very ambitious, and in order to achieve that, to accomplish these goals, your country needs to integrate its economy with global and regional environments, and this calls for an incredible internationalization. This East-West link, it will offer you as future Narxoz alumni incredible opportunities, but as well challenges, I think. And that brings me to the last part of my lecture. And the thing is that when you go abroad, you bring with you your ideas about what's right, what's wrong, what's beautiful, what's ugly. But they don't travel very well. And if you keep on holding back to that, you actually make a mistake. It is as if you were driving your car, but you're only looking in the back mirror. This is dangerous. This will be bloody. And what you need to do is look ahead. And if you're driving in Paris, here we see the Arc de Triomphe, it's different. It's not Kazakhstan. And what you need to develop is a kind of what we call in psychology multi-stability. And that means that you have your Kazakh, you software, and your French software, in this case, if you're going to France. This is not easy, especially not if you're also planning to go to the UK or to Japan, because each country has its own software. And you saw that on the scorecard that I showed you earlier. So it takes preparation, it takes a very good understanding. And therefore, you need what I call self-reflection, and you need to have knowledge of the other. That is homework. That is not something you will discover when you're there. So you need, if you're going on exchange, what I call a pre-departure module. Not just being international, because international doesn't exist. Somebody in Kazakhstan is substantially different from somebody in Uzbekistan as somebody from China. But you're all neighbors. And that makes it interesting, I think, at the same time. Now, what you also need to do is, if you know the other and you know yourself, then you need to make what I call the gap analysis. You have to realize this is different. What will be my communication or social strategy to bridge this divide? I think also you have the Kazakhstani inter-ethnic accord, and I think the rest of us in the world, we can learn from you. Because the way you have the racial harmony model, wow, you have such a rich ethnic tapestry, including Kazakh, Uzbek, Uyghur, Tatar, I could go on. And despite recent tensions that we saw against Dungans, your leadership has always made virtue out of the ethnic diversity that you historically also had on you imposed. I think that Kazakh people already have an incredible basic know-how internally within your country. I think this muscle you should try to develop and use it externally in order to become Eurasian-proof. Another thing that really inspired me, and I also respected, I think it's quite deep and beautiful, the Kazakh conception of respect for spiritual freedom. And I realized that this is a very principal, substantial, deeper value in your culture. And I noticed also that language sometimes is difficult to translate. And if you look at all these language, all these words, vocabulary from your language, in Western language, we only translate it as tolerance or patience. But the fact that you have such a difference and nuances show the attitude of Kazakh people towards tolerance as a deeper value. And I think if you have that subtleness, it will be incredible competitive advantage for you to be international. The only thing that you would need is still the country-specific training, following the needs not of just going to Germany or to Paris, but maybe also think Silk Road. Like the title of this lecture, Eurasian. What have we learned? What can you do? I think you need to realize that to be effective, it calls for cultural adaptation. And that is why in Europe 40% fails. Maybe you can do better. You can only do better if you prepare. Ever saw this movie, Limitless? Now, the hero takes a pill and starts writing books, jumps over buildings, and behaves like a Superman. And I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic? Before you go abroad, the international office gives you a set of pills. The Narxoz internationalization pills. You swallow it, hop, you're Italian. You want to go to Turkey, take one pill and you're Turkish. So yeah, unfortunately, my friends, these pills don't exist. All there is that you can do is go to school, do your homework, prepare yourself. It's not easy, but if you do this right, you're actually laying the groundwork for a highway on which you can high speed drive like a madman or a mad woman. But that is what you need to do. It's hard work, but it pays off. What I always tell my students is those who fail to prepare to fail. I think what you need to do is prepare for a multivector reality. Think Eurasian, think global, and I would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to also invite for the Q&A, which we will conduct on Zoom at this time, not eternally if you watch it on YouTube. Please come with interesting questions or discussion topics. Be happy to talk to you. And otherwise, there must be also a chat function, or you can always email me via the contact of the international office at Narxoz Business School. I would like to say thank you so much for listening and hope to be in touch later.